Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm here today with Sam and Umair, sorry. Umair, correct. And two incredible founders with great stories. And today we're just going to talk a little bit more about their story, some behind of the scene action, and some ideas that they can share for our listeners and for potential entrepreneurs so they can take that to heart and see how they can apply into their own life and their own business. So, Sam, let's start with you. All right, you currently are the chairman of Opus, and I understand that you recently left your private equity firm last year, maybe, or beginning of this year. Mm-hmm. So, tell us a little bit about what made you make that choice.
Thank you for having me. And this is the man I want to hear from. He's revolutionizing media. I'm just helping get good people in a room. But yes, I did. Yeah, I stepped away from a great and amazing firm that I was part of the founding of at the start of this year. We had a lot of success in certain areas, and the model was relatively unique and differentiated. And I was very proud of what we as a group achieved. But there comes a point where you want to take the lessons you learn and you want to apply them to new world things.
Yeah,
and that's where I got to. Opus is more than just a founder community. Over time, I believe it can reinvent and revolutionize how early stage entrepreneurship is done. And that's something that I learned in the private equity world. We built 10 years ago a private equity firm focused on value creation. And we acquired a venture capital business during that journey. During that period, I realized, wow, venture capital firms, they all have money, but 0% of them have any value creation capability.
Yeah.
And the founders are not being served particularly well. And that's only the lucky few anyway that get the VC capital. So how do we support all founders? And what is the greatest value creation tool one can give them? And that's where there was a moment, we were on a trip to the World Economic Forum, and I was having a conversation with someone up the mountains. And it came to me that the only reason I've achieved anything in life, the only reason Ricky and Umair have achieved anything in life is for the same reason as me, everyone. Yeah. And that's because of other people. And relationships are the key component to distribution for any founder in any business. Yeah. And so that's where Opus is going. We're going to build the ultimate distribution, value creation capability using community as the catalyst.
Very interesting.
Amazing.
They say that networking, you never know when it pays off, but eventually it's going to pay off. So it's always good to be meeting new people.
Yeah, networking shouldn't be a thing. It should be a way of life.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
Yeah, amazing. So, and Umair, about you, you left the traditional broadcasting media to build something that nobody believed was possible, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit of what made you make that choice.
Sure, man. First, I'll just congratulate Sam on what he's built in a very short period of time and for taking that leap of faith. So for me, it wasn't just broadcast. I actually worked in the broadcast space for the first 10 years of my life. And then I moved into more of a corporate sector. I moved into financial services. And without diving too much deeper into it, my last role was actually as the chief marketing officer for the Gargash Group here, which is one of the probably top 6 conglomerates. And, as my wife would say, I didn't like the piece. so it was too good a role, life was great. I used to come back at 6 p.m. I had great weekends. I used to do like 3 trips a year with the family. And I think, I've got this personality, I believe, and that's been through my journey, since the start of my career. The moment I feel that the challenge is limited, I want something else. And then also, I believe that I had an idea because of the early stage of my career working in the traditional media business. I thought this industry is the one that really needs to be decentralized and someone needs to take that step. A few other companies were also thinking in the direction, but I think took that leap of faith. And now 4 years down the road, I can proudly say that, while others are also trying to decentralize video streaming, there are other Web3 streaming platforms that started around the same time. I think Myco is the farthest in terms of the results that we've delivered what we've created, the community that we have, the team that we've built, multiple offices now, and the expansion plan that we have, the way forward. I think it's been great. Yeah.
It's an amazing story. And I got some pointers that I'll come back to after, because in a TED Talk, you talked a lot about personality. So I'm going to come back to that. But I do want to ask before we move on is, and this is for both of you, right? If someone that you don't know that is listening or is a viewer, right, was in a similar position today, that they could go and start their entrepreneurial journey or leave that comfortable lifestyle to build something new, what would you suggest them? Or what is something that they could consider that's important before making that leap?
So maybe I can go first. So for me, one thing that I've seen, especially in younger entrepreneurs, I mean, like I'm now at my 40, early 40.
Still young.
Yeah. but I see that a lot of the big tech ideas these days, which is good actually, is coming from people who are under 30, right? But what that does is that it inspires sometimes people to become an entrepreneur a bit too early, right? Because someone has told them that, hey, you're skilled, you're talented, it's easy to raise capital, go start a company, So my only advice would be, you never start a company just because you can go and become an entrepreneur, because you have the capability to raise capital, or because you know people who are venture investors who are willing to back you. A company needs to be always formed on an idea which is worth you risking your life, because at the end of the day, when you start something of your own, it's about your brand before anything else.
Yeah.
Right? Which means that for the next 2 decades, in my opinion, 2 decades, but at least the next decade of your life, you're committing 100% of your time to something, right? So you never do it just because you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to be rich. That should never be an objective. It should start with a disruption in an idea that you believe is worth cracking an industry, and is also worth all of that effort and time and that commitment from your side, because you'll have to sacrifice a lot. People hear about the good things of being an entrepreneur, but people hardly hear about the bad side of becoming an entrepreneur because you have to compromise a lot, and you go through really tough periods. So I think focus on the idea. Once you feel that you have that idea that you're willing to commit your life to, take that jump, but never start just because you want to raise capital or become rich.
Good advice. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I think it's always that, what's that first step?
Yeah.
You just got to just take the first step, and then the next step, and then the next step to get started. Don't think about the end goal too much. But you said something interesting before. You didn't like the piece, and you're right. I read a post this morning on LinkedIn that said, don't become a founder if you like having friends, if you like having money, if you like having free time, if you like anything, because it's just problem solving. Elon Musk said it's like eating glass and staring into the abyss. And it is in many ways. But it's also a bit like, if you've seen the movie The Matrix, it's a bit like being unplugged from the Matrix.
Yeah.
You're not in the rat race anymore. You're on your own time, your own dime. You're your own boss, and being unplugged from the Matrix gives you the greatest single thing, which for me is purpose. You become obsessed with an outcome, and actually then you reflect on, what was life before that? Well, it really was. You were just like a cartoon figure in The Sims.
Yeah.
Wake up, eat, kids, school, bed, work, whatever it is. Entrepreneurship is a new lease of life, I think, for many.
Yeah. And you touched on something there that's very important. And I think you mentioned it during one of your interviews with Lord Mayor in the UK. That was in some time ago, let's say. Let's not put a date on that.
The fact that you've seen that is very worrying. It's still out there somewhere.
It's still out there.
Yeah.
But you mentioned about purpose and how it's purpose beyond profit, right? So how does that tie in to what you're doing? And, how do you see potential future entrepreneurs when they come up with that idea that you just mentioned, the purpose behind it? Does it have to be as powerful to make you take that leap? Is that like part of considering that idea is good enough? Or like, how would you measure that purpose beyond the idea?
Yeah, I think all these things need to be taken in equal consideration. The purpose is what gets it started, gets it moving. But if you can't drive towards profit, you're not going to create something that's sustainable. Yeah. And so everything needs consideration. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship. You got to spin multiple plates, think about multiple metrics, and consider all things. And I think the word impact is overused for sure, and misused in many instances. Like for Opus, as an example, Opus is there to build a global community of founders. That business itself needs to be sustainable. If we were to build a venture capital business alongside it, where we invested in pre-seed seed to begin with, and that maybe then starts to look like a funding environment, an ecosystem for founders over time, more like an asset management business, that can absolutely make money, but it doesn't exist without the community.
Yeah.
And the community is the purposeful part. And so I think purpose and profit have to come hand in hand.
Yeah. Also, you have to find the right balance. So just to add to that, I think if you look at Myco's example, so when we started, there were two parts of our business. One was to build a watch and earn streaming platform because we wanted to empower the consumer, and we felt that, consumers cannot be commodities anymore. They have to be the product, which means that they should be able to monetize their investment. So this was the easily scalable part, and the unit economics or the profitability could be managed. The other part, which is the one that I'm more passionate about, which is the purpose of the idea, is when you decentralize an industry and when you give power to the consumer, the end objective is that you're going to empower content creators, because content creators today don't have access to funding. They have high barriers to entry. Every content creator, everyone who's looking for a share within the attention economy today, whether it's a filmmaker or a producer or an athlete, they need that funding. There's only one source or one power in this entire world that can provide funding in a decentralized environment to everyone. That is the viewers, right? And that's what we're trying to create. That's the purpose. But it's challenging, that purpose is challenging financially. So while we have created film societies and communities, and we've funded almost 200 projects till now, some of them have done really well. Some have gone to festivals, won awards. But still, from a unit economic standpoint, that part of our business still is not profitable. So we had to take a choice, between the purpose and the financials.
Yeah.
And that's why we decided after the first year that we're going to focus more on the streaming platform and the watch and earn proposition. We're going to scale it up, bring the right content, try to do that business in a profitable environment, and start giving back to the viewers, give financial power to the viewers, so that one day when we go back to them, when we have all the crowdfunding licenses and the regulations sorted, and we go tell them that, hey, by the way, you can also you're earning money, now you can also invest it back.
Yeah.
So that disruption, which is the core purpose of building Myco, has to wait, because the financials are also important, right? And the survival of the company is also important, while the purpose still remains the priority at the back of my head. But I think there's a balance.
And there's a couple of points there that just got me thinking. There's a phrase often used, the quadruple bottom line, which is purpose, profit, planet, and people. And I think in the world we live in at the moment, with AI in every conversation, people are obsessed about how AI can increase profit, create efficiencies.
Yeah.
One of the really important parts of the quadruple bottom line, I think we need to not forget, is people. And not just the people we serve, but the people inside a business, employees. And every day at the moment, we're reading about 6,000 people cut from Microsoft. And 5,000 people cut from Google, and even 10 people cut from a smaller business. There's going to come a point where businesses have a responsibility to keep people employed. Otherwise, we're going to face the single largest unemployment crisis the world has ever seen. And that's a very real thing, unless we start to talk about the people in that equation.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it was Klarna CEO, the pay later service from Sweden. They went all in AI at the beginning of the AI boom, let's say. And they had all their customer support that was really AI focused. And now they're rolling it back because they want people to speak to people, because that's where the value is, especially in financial institutions, right? Like you don't want to be able to speak to a robot when like they're taking care of your money and stuff like that, right? So I think that ties into what you're saying, that there has to be a right balance, and that people are still going to be a center stone of our community and of the future of any business, regardless if it's using AI or not.
I could so see a world where like, have you ever seen the fair trade stamps on food and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
You have like a people trade stamp where it's like, we put people in front of AI.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. Okay.
Yeah.
maybe we make that.
I actually saw a really good post today on Instagram. It was from a recruitment company. So it was a very creative approach. So they had like there's like a collage of visuals. So the visuals were actually, so the first thing that you saw, there was a picture of a guy, and they were like, he's a growth marketing specialist. His name was mentioned, and he was like, he will bring 60% growth to your business. He lost his job because of AI or whatever, And then there was a second person, and there was a third person, right? And different roles. So they were actually profiling on Instagram, talking about what capabilities these people had, but for some reason, they lost their jobs and currently are okay. But I really liked the campaign. It was super creative. Got my attention.
Yeah, I like definitely. That a lot.
Yeah. So speaking about people, right? I think you mentioned it in the TEDx in Clifton that you personalities, craziness, and curiosity, right, is what allow you to break barriers. How important is to have that in your team members, right? To when you want to scale these crazy ideas or when you want to create your company, having that as part of the team and part of the culture.
Yeah, I think, entrepreneurship requires certain qualities, right? And being a risk taker, being slightly crazy, being a freak, and at the same time being extra curious, I think. So curiosity for me is the number one quality for being an entrepreneur, because that helps you quench, find something else. Bring new ideas to the table and keep growing ultimately, because innovation is not a constant. Innovation is very relative because things are evolving as we speak, right? So when I say that about entrepreneurship, there are two types of employees that you find. There are, you've heard the term entrepreneur in residence, which is growing across organizations. But I think I like the traditional term, which was entrepreneur. So for me, when I talk about team, I want to hire entrepreneurs, which basically means that people who are working for Myco, but they consider themselves as an entrepreneur. They consider themselves as a partner. They consider themselves vested. They want to grow with the company. And I think within the venture capital landscape and the PE landscape, because it's all about innovation and growth, you've already seen the concept of partners, right? So when a leading venture firm, initially they used to have employees, now they have partners. Why do you think they have partners? Because they've created vested interest for each partner to go find the right deals, support the right founders, grow with them and grow their portfolios with them, right? But again, even if you are to, so I would happily incentivize everyone with something that they have in the company, like shareholding or a business unit that they manage, in which they actually have a vested interest, direct vested interest on the top line as well. I love doing those deals with employees, but at the same time, not all of them want it, because there are some people who just like the routine, for them, 100%. For them, it's the, getting the 9 to 6, getting paid, having that weekend with their friends.
3 travels a year.
That's their priority, right? So you need to be smart. I think you need to be smart, because if you start looking at everyone as an entrepreneur in your organization, you will be at fault, because you will be rewarding certain people a bit too much. Whereas there are certain people that you can identify even at the, at the lowest tier, even the youngest tier, you will find people who have that quality to become an entrepreneur within the organization. And then you need to nourish that, you need to enable them to achieve what they can.
Yeah. Sam, you've been around a lot of entrepreneurs. What stands out from the personality as well? Is it aligned with what Umair says, or you have another take on it?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, entrepreneurs come in all shapes and sizes. That's kind of the beauty of it. I think the most successful entrepreneurs, lots of people talk about different qualities being important. One that often is at the very top of the list is tenacity, the ability to never give up, to be able to keep walking through walls. And I agree with that massively. But actually, I think empathetic leadership, to Umair's point, is really, really important. One of the big dichotomies for a founder is no one cares as much as you do, right? You turn up to your office and you're the first in the door and you're like, what the fuck is everyone?
Yeah.
And you need to speak to someone at 8 p.m. in the evening and you can't get hold of them. You're like, what are they doing? Why do they not care as much as me? And the reality is you've got to be able to inspire, motivate, and build momentum in a way that does create culture and doesn't kill it. And the greatest entrepreneurs have built the movement, the internal excitement where people do get obsessed. But that obsession, passion can't be forced, obsession can't be forced. You got to help light it from within and empower people to be in charge, proud of their work, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's where curiosity kicks in, right? It's having that kind of edge to always try to learn something and
of course,
stay updated.
So, what he said is so relevant to me because, so for the first year and a half, I felt no one cares as much as I do, right? But there were still some outperformers. And so one thing that I did towards the end of the second year, which is actually rare, you won't find it anywhere, is that, we obviously offered stocks to certain employees in the leadership team that were early. But then some of the top performers that I felt were still, even though they were not owners, they were taking the pain, right? So I actually gave some of them a co-founder status, and I actually gave them, although they had joined as employees, 6 months down the road or a year down the road, but we made them co-founders. We went to the board, gave them some equity. And since then, what I saw was that instead of just one person taking all the pain, now it's at least 7 people taking the pain, right? And then there are others in the organization who see that, okay, this organization is open to even the founder title being shared.
Exactly.
So which basically means that they understand that, in terms of leading businesses, there will be something that will be shared with them, even if it's not the founder title. So even the younger employees, now they see an outcome beyond just, growth as an employee within the organization. So I think that really helped me.
No, that's amazing. I mean, that's kind of the dream when you go into a company in a startup, that you can work with somebody like that. And I think tying it back to Sam, to your experience in Opus, right? Like that's kind of the community you're trying to build, right? Like where founders can help other founders. And then eventually when they become big, they can reinvest in that new generation of entrepreneurs, right? So it's kind of a cycle, right? A sustainable cycle. So tell us a little bit more about how you see that moving forward in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened in Silicon Valley. The first VC funds came and they gathered around good universities, and Sand Hill Road was born, and the first generation of successful founders invested in the VC firms and became venture partners and continued to invest, and this cycle was born. And I believe you can do that in microclimates all around the world if you build communities. And that's exactly what Opus is trying to do. We're only 1 minute into the journey. We've got a long way to go. But we're building those small communities that are connected on a global level. And it's all about a movement. We're building a cult here. Okay, we're not quite going to drink the Kool-Aid, but I want to get close to that, where everyone joins and they're like, I really want to help someone. I really want, like the first thing when we met earlier, and Umair said, I'm focused on effectively revolutionizing the media space through tokenization. All I wanted to do was sit him down with another person I know through Opus, because I know that chemistry could create some magic. And if everyone's thinking like that and not just thinking about themselves, it's a little bit like, I was talking with Pascaline, who leads the Middle East for Opus earlier. In the early 1900s, you had the literary legends, the Hemingways of the world. In the 70s, 80s, you had, 60s, 70s, 80s, you had the British artists, the Hockneys, Hearst, Emmons, Rileys. In the 90s, in the US, in Detroit, in New York, you had the hip hop artists. Mm-hmm. Founders are artists too. They're cousins. They're alike. They're just a different type of creator. And that's the movement that I want Opus to build. It's not about me, the person that started it. It's not about any of us. It's about all of us. And we're building the next generation of founders, the next generation of creatives that will change the world.
No, that's very powerful. And I think what I'm interested to learning is from each of you, right? Like you have different momentum and different kind of communities, right? One built through trust and rewards, and the other one through connections and helping each other. So what do you think these type of communities can learn from each other, and how can they coexist or build on top of it?
You want to go first? Yeah.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, so I think we're doing both, to be honest, because yes, we're building a community by rewarding and incentivizing them, and believing that, they're actually, so the biggest disruption I think which Myco has been able to derive is that we did a very interesting campaign actually we did, which I'll talk about, is around 3 years ago when we just started the brand. And the title of that campaign was Imagine a World Without Viewers. Right. So when you're trying to make someone a stakeholder by incentivizing them, you're not incentivizing them because you just want a benefit out of them. You need to believe truly that they are stakeholders. Right.
Yeah.
So, and we truly believe that viewers are stakeholders. If my son goes to an event at his school or outside of school where he gets a free ticket, let's say for a theater or a drama or a show or any entertainment event, and he comes back, he actually tells me that, Dad, by the way, there was no ticket to that show. I was like, do you understand why? He was like, yes, because there were brands that I saw. So those brands were interested in marketing to me. They were the ones who were paying the cost for the event.
Yeah.
Right. So similarly, what's happening in this industry, the media industry, is that this new generation, whether the Gen Zs, the early Gen Zs, or the Gen Alphas you're talking about, they're much more informed about the power that they have, right? So they understand that they're not commodities, they're the actual product. What if they realize that the existing model where they don't get anything out of it, advertisers are spending billions of dollars. The money is spent on platforms, kept by platforms and creators and producers, sports rights owners, whoever.
Yeah.
The consumer is just sitting on the side, whereas the eyeball is contributed by them. So we did a campaign when we started Myco that imagine the consumer actually realizes this, that they had the real power and they're not getting anything out of it. They can't monetize their consumption and they can't invest into content. So what if they leave? So there will be a world where everyone will be producing content, publishing content, creators will be doing videos, athletes will be playing sports. But imagine if everyone just stops watching content, they move to some other form of entertainment like gaming, where they are empowered, by the way, within gaming. Now, gaming has evolved a lot. So it became a hit, that campaign became a massive success. So we're not really just incentivizing and rewarding, we're actually giving them what is rightfully theirs. And in doing so, we're also empowering and creating a community whereby consumers of content and creators are coming together. So if you look at even investors and advertisers, so if you look at the film society that we started in Dubai around 2 years ago, it's become really successful now. And what happens there is that young content creators, filmmakers, around 150, 200 of them, they come together at least once a month. There's an event, sometimes every 3 weeks. And every film school in the UAE is participating in that, because these young independent filmmakers, these students, they're not getting funding opportunities. So if you create a community where viewers are closer, advertisers or brands that are willing to invest into these ideas are closer, the people are going to come together, right? And you're going to create a really powerful community. So one of the projects that actually got funded in one of our film society events last year, it won the best short film award at COP28 because it was an impact film. Overused term, impact, but yeah. And there are some amazing stories that come out of this community that we've created. So yeah, that's my take on it. I think it's a combination. And what we're doing is a combination. We're not just rewarding, but we're actually creating a community, knitting them together, and then creating outcomes for each stakeholder.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on. Communities feel magical, but they don't come together by magic. They're not accidents. And my belief is that in the future, for businesses, brand and community are going to be two massive differentiators in the success of a business. And a lot of people forget what a community is. A community is not a marketplace. A community is an exchange of values as well as transactions and ideas, and it has to reciprocate.
Yeah.
And to build that, you have to build with intent. You have to build the infrastructure to allow it to happen. Because whilst human beings do things by habit. They don't do things by accident.
Yeah.
And that's a very important point of differentiation. If you get a human being doing the same thing daily, they'll probably keep doing it,
Sure.
but they won't start doing it because there's no logic.
Yeah.
And I've got actually written on my hand here, 2.0 incentive model. What is the incentive model? We're building an AI capability in the Opus app. Think of the Opus app a bit like a kind of closed loop LinkedIn. The AI tool will mean that when Umair goes to it in the morning, every time it says, how are you doing today? Is there something we can help you with?
Mm-hmm.
And you might say, yeah, I'm thinking about doing my Series B. Is there anyone you recommend I speak with? And we will, in the background, using thousands of data sources, scrape the web and all these other sources, and we will make recommendations based on our community, our wider network, our events, our partners, etc., so that you have a place to solve it. That's gonna, and then the question is, how do we incentivize that person to not just take but give? So you create a give to get model. So, for example, just before you exit the app after you've asked the question, we'll say, okay, for you to be able to ask a question in the future, give us one piece of information, answer one question. What's the greatest challenge you've solved recently? And you might say, we solved a really tough HR challenge with hiring in Pakistan. And we go, okay, we've now logged that piece of information and there's a guy to go to for that specific thing. And then you create the incentive model. And that's how I think communities are built. You need to build with intent, and you need to build the infrastructure, and you need to build a psychological give to get model.
Yeah. So I'm seeing this from the outside, right? I'm listening to both models, and there's something that just comes up again, which is like the loyalty behind of the reward. Yeah. So traditional loyalty systems, they've always been a thing. They're big, right? If you buy now, you get points and then you can reuse them. There's big loyalty systems. Airlines use it a lot, credit cards and stuff. Yeah. That's not a community, right? That's a loyalty for using the same product over and over again. Mm-hmm. And then you have the community side, where I would say the biggest communities where people don't expect anything in return, let's say, would be in football or sports, right? Because it's like they're devoted to that team because family history, town history, whatever, right? Yeah. You got the Gunners there, for example. And sports, traditionally, they've migrated to own that fan base and give more value to those fans by integrating loyalty systems, right? Yeah. So the question is, where's that line between loyalty, between reward, right? You talked about it a bit on what your future are with Opus, but how can you differentiate it? Like from somebody from the outside, right? What we're used to, right? Because you guys are very invested in it and you understand really well what's the difference. Somebody from the outside is going to see this and they're going to just think, oh, another loyalty system, or oh, another reward system, right? Because at the end, people that want to join, they're going to be selfish. What's in it for me? Yeah. Right? So in Myco, for example, I get rewards. In Opus, I can get connections. But beyond that, right? How can you get that people to invest as well, their own time, right? A question can help being part of the events, but you can't really force that, right? So is there a way where we can look at this as, you spoke about ownership, or you spoke about, for example, Sam, you spoke about also these unique experiences, right? You guys took some people to Davos. That's something unique that you can only do if you're part of the community. I'm not sure if I'm making a lot of sense, but I'm just trying to understand, right? Like from an outside perspective.
Different people care about different things. Some people care about ownership. Some people care about impact.
Yeah.
Let's try and bring it to life with a real life example. Let's use, this is a good one, I think, British Airways.
Yep.
Okay. We can tag British Airways. They can take this and dissect it in their innovation department. British Airways product is universally known as being pretty crap now. It's not a very good flight experience compared to the Middle East and Asian airlines, even the American airlines. And there's a lot of things, if they did some proper customer service, they'd find out.
I have my doubt about the American airlines.
A little bit of customer service. Research would probably go a long way for them. But they've got the best, arguably, loyalty scheme in the world. And they pioneered it, and it's untouchable by other airlines or really other brands. But that's loyalty, not community.
Yeah.
What they could do, and this is just an idea to show you the difference between community, is create an environment where you could trade your points.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you don't want to begin with. Some people will fly with British Airways because they like the status. Some people because they like the lounge. Some people because they like the reward flights.
Yeah.
Imagine you could trade not so that I could give Ricky all my points, although I'm sure I would, but
I'll
because British Airways partnered with Great Ormond Street Hospital, and I could give a child and their family 100,000 air miles so that they could go on their once a decade summer holiday.
Yeah.
I would do that instantly. And I would love British Airways for it.
Yeah. That's powerful.
And then you can create a bond maybe with the family, and they write to you or whatever. And that creates a subset, a sub-community within a loyalty program.
Yeah.
And that's how I would probably differentiate the two. Just loyalty, it keeps it very transactional in my view. And I think there's a shelf life to that.
Yeah.
And the shelf life with BA is, put simply, I'm going to be flying to the Middle East a lot and the US a lot. I'm probably going to start flying with a different airline.
Yeah.
And just start with different loyalty schemes.
Yeah. So again, I mean, I completely agreed with Sam, but on the same example, what my view is that eventually communities and loyalty are all going to aggregate into ownership, right? And I completely agree with his example that, if you want to accelerate what's existing, which is a very transactional relationship right now that British Airways has, is by allowing them to trade points, right? But what if you could allow them to curate experiences? Let's say you have a certain amount of loyalty points as a British Airways user.
Yeah.
If you get to that point, you can actually curate experiences. You can design what happens. You consider yourself a part of the team that elevates that loyalty program into a community program.
Okay.
Let's say there's an allocation of let's say £1 million a year, which is not a lot of money for British Airways, which is just to organize events for these loyal members. And who's going to design those events are people who have a certain standing in that community, right? So that's how you build ownership. You transit. And
that makes sense.
Even in the example of a football club, right? And you're completely. I mean, I don't want anything from Arsenal, to be honest. Because I've been a follower for the past 2.22 years now, and I'm being like, I haven't missed a match in the past 22 years. I started following it 25 years ago. Now, with that kind of loyalty that I have, or passion that I have, as you mentioned, towards the club, I don't need anything. However, at the same time, imagine if I had an opportunity to become a co-owner in the club, just 0.001% of that. That would take my passion, my loyalty, my energy to the next level. If there was a token that got offered to me saying that, hey, by the way, and then, everything that the club does, that percentage of the revenue or the profit is yours. And by the way, you also get some additional benefits by becoming a co-owner, which is you get access to tickets, you get separate treatment, and a lot more, right? And then you get involved in curating experiences, designing, how the fans are going to evolve from being fans to owners. That would get me really excited. So I have a very strong opinion about the fact that all consumption and community ultimately is going to lead into ownership structures, decentralized, tokenized ownership structures, which is the future of finance and which is also the future of entertainment, sports, streaming, everything.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I would we'll tag British Airways. That's a good idea. And we'll tag Arsenal as well.
Yeah, exactly. For different reasons. I love it.
No, that makes sense. So you spoke about the future of finance, right? And I think in an interview in Istanbul Summit, Sam, you mentioned that
you really went into the archives.
Yeah, I did. Wow. Did my homework.
Yeah.
Jeez.
You said that peer-to-peer lending was going to be the future, right? And this ties into kind of the community, right? Of how you can.
That's why you never predict the future.
How do you think those ideas have aged today?
Yeah, not like I thought it would. Thankfully, I didn't invest behind it. I think brand and community are the future now, but I have at least a degree of certainty that they're not going to go the same way as peer-to-peer lending. Yeah, look, I've had a number of thoughts historically. I think what you realize when you're growing up is you want to bet on the things that are de-risked to some extent, particularly if you're going to concentrate your risk.
Yeah.
And I believe in risk concentration for sure. But risk concentration comes in many different kind of formats. That's part of the reason why I like angel investing so much. And today I've invested in probably nearly 100 businesses, but 43 of them are Opus member companies now, where I was first check-in, and over 10 of them have gone on to be VC funded. The beauty of that, and I will continue to do that, the beauty of angel investing is you get to bet behind a theme that you have in a way that you can't bet with your time.
Yeah,
I can't go and take founding roles or lead roles or even supporting roles in many of these companies, but I can absolutely lend my network, any credibility I might have, and my ideation to a whole load of amazing founders betting on spaces that I have a passion for or a thesis in. And there's a few examples of that. Earned wage access is one of them.
Yeah.
To this day, it frustrates me that any given employee out there is loaning their company money every day that they're not getting paid when they need it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter really to some extent how wealthy you are. Like I want the money I earn each day because it helps me budget, it helps me plan, helps me feel like I'm financially secure. So that's the space, for example, I've spent a lot of time betting behind.
That's great.
That sounds like it makes more sense at peer-to-peer, but then I would argue that could still be something interesting in the future. And if we talk about tokenizing that part, right? And then I'm coming back to you, Omar.
Yeah.
Like tokenization, it's not just the content, right? There's come the financial sector. There's also tons of opportunities,
of course,
stable coins and blockchain and whatnot. Yeah. People are still kind of skeptical about it. I would say they're kind of scared. They just see it as maybe scams or Bitcoin, and that's it. There's it's just the entry point. There's so much behind that we don't know, right? So how do you think this type of tokenization is going to impact, right, the day-to-day? You kind of touched upon it right now, saying that that's the future, but can you touch?
So I think the future is RWA, and the reason why crypto in general and the blockchain technology has been underutilized is, unfortunately, some people who had their own vested interest, I'm not going to take names, they turned it into a gambling regime, right?
Yeah.
Which basically means that this entire thing around utility tokens, was done and created in a way that the financial outcome in the secondary market became more important than actually the tokenization utility on the platforms and within the product, right? And that's very unfortunate. And again, I'm a beneficiary because at Myco, we're also working on utility tokens, and we actually also make money because those tokens are traded on secondary exchanges. But having said that, it is unfair and unfortunate because I really see the value is in RWA plays, which means that everything in crypto that can disrupt the world can be done on stable coins. It does not need a new currency to be created, and this is information that no one's going to tell you because everyone wants to create their own tokens and everyone wants those tokens to be traded because it's early liquidity for the founders, it's early liquidity for the VCs. VCs love it. But the reality is these tokens are not required for any disruption that we're talking about, whether we're talking about in fintech, we're talking about content, we're talking about sports. Everything can happen in stable coins. Right? And I think that's why in the past 3 to 6 months, I have seen some rapid progression. Obviously, I don't get a lot of time because we're running a B2C platform, so my focus is obviously more on the consumer side of our business. And I've been kind of detached from the tokenization part. But I have seen some great progress in the past 3 to 6 months. Some of the largest, regulators, entities globally here in GCC, also in the US. US is obviously far ahead of any other economy. There's a lot of progress now in RWA and stablecoin based use cases across different industries. And I finally feel that over the next 2 to 3 years, the world will really start seeing the benefits of blockchain technology and tokenization, because the true benefit is going to come with stablecoins.
Inshallah, no?
Inshallah.
As you say.
Yeah.
So I do have a question that I was excited to ask, and I'll start with you, Sam. So if you were to run Myco for one day, what would be the first performance metric that you would want to see? And then same for you, if you would run Opus one day, what would be the first metric that you would want to see? So let's maybe kick it off with you.
I mean, I like the question, and I am not qualified to answer it. If I had known that one was coming up, I would have spoken to you beforehand. I suspect it's probably consumer engagement, customer satisfaction, and how they feel about the solution, and because ultimately you're changing, by virtue of the offering, you're changing consumer behavior. Exactly. And so it all relies on how a consumer innately feels about it, which will then change how you build the product and how you market it and all those things. Is that a fair?
Yeah, amazing. So when people actually ask me what do you think is going to be the tipping point when Myco is like, and obviously in one of our markets, we've already become the joint largest app, by the way. But, people ask me, when's that tipping point going to happen? I give them this answer. When the consumer, from a behavioral shift perspective, starts expecting that, okay, this is my right to monetize my consumption. I will not watch content unless I'm getting paid. That's the tipping point.
Okay,
right?
that makes sense.
So it's a behavioral shift.
Yeah.
Which is going to happen. I know one day it's going to happen. Either it's going to be us or someone else, but it will happen.
Yeah.
And it's about Myco trying to make sure that we are the ones making that behavioral shift. If that happens, then we get to all of our objectives.
Yeah.
So 100% agree with that answer. Yeah.
You nailed it. Okay.
Yeah.
How about you? What would you think? What would you like to see from Opus?
So I think he mentioned something really interesting, which was, it needs to be give. And by the way, I love the idea of the app that you're working on. But, you mentioned about what you get as an Opus member. I'm an Opus member now versus what I give back. Right? So give and giving back, that's community. So I think for me, the biggest metric would be where, if not all, at least majority of the members become passionate about giving back more than what they're getting. That's where it will be true success for Opus as a community. Because, for example, as a member right now, I'm interested in attending events because I want to get more, and I'm being honest here,
Yeah,
I'm
course.
not vested enough that I want to give more, right? Whereas there is a community, for example, which I've been a part of now for 3 years. It's called Park Launch. And I'm giving an example here, but that is basically a global community of Pakistani origin entrepreneurs, VCs, investors coming together to help Pakistani founders. Over there, I am more vested to give more because, I'm so passionate about it today that when I go there, I'm not thinking that I'm going to raise capital. Right?
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking I'm going to help one guy, every time I attend an event. So, but that's built over time. That's built with shared ownership. So, one thing that the founder over there has done he's made all of us feel like we're shared owners, over a period of time. And obviously there's also a common interest, a common ideology, because I'm Pakistani origin.
Of course.
I obviously want to give back to the country.
Yeah.
And everyone from Pakistani origin, and some of the most successful funds in the Silicon Valley are being run by Pakistanis, for example. Some very prominent unicorn founders are Pakistani origin. And since we don't go back to our country that often because of things not being great, this is one way of us giving back, right? So either you find a hook or you create an ownership structure for the members whereby I become more incentivized to give more than I take. I think that's going to be the...
Yeah, it is written on my hand, incentive model. You gotta find what's important to someone, what encourages the good to get.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, Sam, I think that could be challenging as well because you have different markets, right? So the way that you operate here in the UAE and now you just launched South Africa is obviously you have the blueprint from the UK, but then culture-wise, I mean, the market itself, the way the investments flow as well, and the technology, it's very different, right? So how would you kind of adapt that? And I guess that you want to also go to even more markets.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the, let's say, trying to find my words to say this correctly, but how do you keep Opus localized enough to make it interesting, but international enough to also get that exposure?
Yeah, that local global model is hard for any company. Pascaline running the Middle East chapters, Jono in South Africa, they both plug into our global model, but you got to run it on a local level. You couldn't have the community run out of London.
Well, thanks to her, we're here, right? So.
Correct. And you got to hire the right people. It's no coincidence that Pascaline and I have known each other for 20 years.
Yeah, of course.
I trust her intimately to be the best, and so you got to choose those people very carefully. I think there's a degree of, particularly with communities and particularly where there's a value exchange, you got to think about what the value is of having it truly diversified. If it's just to grow the revenue line, that's not a reason. Mm-hmm. The reason we're in those markets is very simple. The community is like a network state and it gets stronger as it grows. And Ricky from Venezuela and Umair from Pakistan and Sam from London all bring different knowledge, experiences, networks to the table. And it doesn't matter what country we're based in, we make that network state stronger so that when you tap a question into the AI, we get truly diversified thought leadership on it.
Yeah.
And anyone who joins the community becomes a connected node in the network state that makes it stronger. And so I think for me, that's why we're in different markets. It's diversification of experience, of distribution. And so we've got to stay true to that. We've got to continue to build and expand where we think that will add most value to others.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that we'll launch in a really small market early on because we won't get the richness of diversity probably from that market immediately versus a larger market.
Yeah.
And then the US is next on our list.
Interesting. The US is a big beast, so I guess West Coast, East Coast.
East Coast to begin with, but it's a kind of low-cost expansion model with a no-cost further expansion model where we have London for Europe, UAE for Middle East, South Africa for Africa, and then New York for North America. And then they will build into other cities from there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay. So I do want to ask, I think we're running out of time. So what is one shortcut that you would email yourself for your 25-year-old self today?
What is one shortcut? I'd probably say, don't waste time. Don't waste time partying with friends, I guess. Save that. Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. That's fair. How about you, Sam?
Mine would be kind of similar. It would be don't spend time with the wrong people, for sure. But it would also be maybe sort of more simplistically, go to bed earlier, get up earlier, and create more hours in the day. That makes a big difference.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mine would also be don't break your knee while playing football.
that would help.
That would help. Yeah.
I actually broke my ACL when I was 27. So 25 would have saved me.
Yeah, exactly. You would be in Arsenal maybe now.
Yeah, I would have been doing something. I mean, because I was very athletic, before that incident happened, and after that, I wasn't too athletic for the rest of my life. So I would.
But Myco might not exist without it. So there you go. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I guess this would be the last question, and it's about Dubai, right? And the region. And if you have a founder that's considering setting up here or bringing their business here, what advice could you give them, and how could it be helpful to attract them to come here instead of, I don't know, another market?
Sure. So again, I've been in Dubai now for over a decade. As I said, I was working with one of the largest groups here. Even when I was in Pakistan, my last role was actually in a company that was co-owned by them. And I think there's a lesson there is that contrary to what people feel, and so a lot of the funds, I know a lot of people in the US, a lot of funds in the US are close to me because I will always raise capital whenever I've needed capital. I've gone to the US, both East Coast and West Coast. So I've seen this transition over the past 2 years that a lot of people come to UAE because they think they can raise capital, whether it's funds, founders. They come to UAE or Saudi Arabia thinking that they can raise capital. They can have a nice deck, with an impact, show some numbers, and they can raise capital. But my experience with the UAE and with this region in general is that people invest here into people and relationships. They don't invest into your pedigree. They don't invest into your background. They don't invest into your CV. They're gonna invest into people and relationships. My example is the biggest. I was working for a group for a decade. I started my startup. First check came from that group only. They still consider me as a part of the family. I'm even involved in 500 other things with them, not just Myco, even till date, right? So my advice would be to work on relationships and build relationships with the local families, investors here in the region, rather than looking for quick wins. Because I think that's how this region operates. The second, which is also very important, is that when you start a company here, having commercial economics in the UAE still is difficult. Why? Because there's very few people that live here. The total population is 9 million people, And even in that, there's multiple diasporas. And there is a huge segment of the labor class, which is not really a consumer for everyone. For me, they are, but for a lot of products, they're not, right?
Yeah.
Which basically means that you need to base yourself here. You need to build relationships here. You need to get the funding here, but you need to look regional and more so global. Because if you start investing all of your capital in this market, it's very difficult for you to find unit economics and build profitable businesses. So you have to look outside.
Yeah.
You have to look at North Africa. You have to look at Africa, as you were saying. You have to look at, Southeast Asia, the Indian subcontinent, even Central Asia. These are all regions which are very close by. There's bigger consumer populations. The cost of operations is much less. The investment is much less. And the people cost is also much less. They're great people in all of these, territories that I'm talking about. So don't go into don't go into short-term fundraising here. Build long-term fundraising plans and relationships. Spend time here. You'll have to spend a lot of time. Secondly, once you've done that, don't put all of your eggs here. Look around and try to scale up your business in other markets while being based here.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, well, that's really good advice. And if you need to network with people, Opus is the place for sure.
Yeah.
Sam, what do you think about founders that want to come here to the region? Your Opus is fairly new here in the region as well, so you've experienced it yourself.
This is such an exciting part of the world. I think you can't not pay attention to it. That would be foolish. I do think that founders could spend time here for many benefits, but also recognizing the domestic market's not that big here. There's no harm to having team members here, creating more of an around the sun model, benefiting from lower cost labor, benefiting them from tax regimes, but having your target markets in other parts of the world. That could just be big business, good business. I think creating a longer working day where a company never sleeps because you have people in different geographies is a very attractive model.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
Oh, and if you're going to have an exit, come spend 5 years in Dubai.
Yeah, if you come to Dubai, your exit's gonna be finished in 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can spend a lot.
You
very
can spend
easily
a lot of money in Dubai.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's it for my end. I don't know if any of you want to add some final remarks.
Just thank you. Thanks very much. And if we can support the podcast, it would be a delight.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. And
it was a pleasure, man.
Hope catch us on the next one. Cheers.